And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Phone number is 888-659-3727. So great to be here. Another Tuesday night, another hair loss show, another opportunity to talk to all you guys out there who are dealing with this silent epidemic of biblical proportions. And I have to tell you that, man, oh man, what a week. Now, not that it was an exciting week in hair loss. It was just, since Sunday, for the last 2-3 days, my phones have been ringing off the hook. And it's a long story, but the bottom line is, it's probably not great to let people know who don't know who I am or what I do, to let them know what I do in a social setting. I've spoken about this before, but I was out this weekend. I went to a pretty big event in Los Angeles. Had a couple of drinks, enjoying myself a little bit, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I was holding court again with some pretty well-known people in entertainment, and some other well-known people in business who live here in Los Angeles, and it was insane. It was like, I'm talking about extremely successful, well-heeled guys who are in the income brackets of $40-50 million a year. And everyone that I spoke to, everyone who was asking me questions, we were all sitting around this table. It's kind of like a bar situation. None of them knew what the fuck was up. 2 of them had been through nightmare hair transplants and have been lucky enough to have pretty decent repair work done. And these are guys who have the means and who should have the wherewithal to really be able to do the best for themselves. They didn't find the show. They didn't take the time to find the show. They took the usual route that a lot of celebrities and well-known people take, and that is to allow their business managers to do their research. And the results show, and the fact that these guys really had no idea some of the stuff that was coming down the pike was out there. Anyway, to make a long story short, they were fascinated by it. I do not carry a business card, but 4 of them asked me for my numbers. They must have shared it with these other guys. And almost every guy that I was speaking with here, and one guy's wife, or at the event, called me. And I guess what this proves is that, like I say every week, this is a silent epidemic of biblical proportions. It affects just about every household, around the world. Just goes to show you that no matter how successful, how well-heeled, how sophisticated, how together you think people are, they're all fucked up over their hair loss. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they could pull it off. At one point or another, they were fucked up over it. Now, I'm not saying that I hang in these circles all the time. This is a unique situation for me. I was invited to this thing, and it was a lot of fun, for sure. But it's just amazing, these guys are just, power players in finance and in entertainment, and it's just, they're so lost. So for you guys who have found this resource, for you guys who have been a part of the Bald Truth, for you guys who have stumbled upon the American Hair Loss Association or picked up my book originally when it was in the bookstores and on Amazon and all the other online resources, you guys are the lucky ones. what we provide is not perfect because we can't help everybody, but at least you guys are able to navigate through the bullshit out there. I'm sure some of the guys that watch this program or listen to the show are, successful in their own right and do their own thing, and they've been lucky enough to, to find us. And even to find some other online resources which are, which can be just as compelling as far as, some the information that's out there. But I'm just shocked. I'm shocked every time I come across really, well-educated, learned people to see how little they know about the hair loss process, about what's out there to help with hair loss, about the reality of surgical hair restoration and its limitations. It's fucking nuts. Sometimes, and it's just like, and I guess it's second nature to me because this is what I do. But it's like, wow, we're in the age of the internet. And while as confusing as it can be, if, you're smart, you can kind of, sift through the bullshit. You see the ads and all the stuff and, the guys that are selling ebooks. And if you are quasi together, I would think you would kind of move past all that bullshit. I just spit all over my microphone. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So I certainly want to talk about that today. And let me give out the phone number. It's 888-659-3727. Also, we have a special guest calling in. He's a relatively new IAHS member. I mean, he's been with us, I guess, for about a year, something like that. And he's a guy that I think has a really unique perspective on hair loss and a unique background. This is a guy that is a patient himself. He's a hair transplant surgeon who has had, I think, maybe one or two procedures. So he's definitely a hair loss sufferer. But he was also a NFL football player. He played for the San Francisco 49ers. And while he was still playing, he was basically involved in a very specific medical program, which he can talk about. And he was basically going to medical school while he was playing professional football. So he's a pretty amazing guy, and I think he has a pretty amazing story. And he's a hair loss sufferer just like the rest of us. And the reason he got involved in surgical hair restoration is because it's helped him in his life. His name is Dr. John Frank. We're going to have him on probably about 15, 20 minutes after the hour. But right now we're going to take a couple of phone calls. 888-659-3727. I'm pretty sure this is Joe. Let's see if it is. Hey, you're on Bald Truth. Who's this?
Yes, good evening, Spencer. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really agitated tonight.
Why?
I really have to attack a certain segment of the hair loss community.
What segment is that?
The young sufferers who are posting on the Bald Truth and all the other forums how suicidal they are, how unhappy they are, how miserable they are. They give up their limbs for hair. They do anything. Don't you guys get it? In a couple of short years, you'll have maybe not a cure, but you'll have something that can help you. You'll have an effective treatment. You have your youth yet, and you'll be able to recapture. You still have your youth. For a guy like me, an older man, older gentleman, millions of people like me, yes, I have more hair in a couple of years, but I can never, ever, ever have my youth back. Listen to me, young sufferers. Don't throw your youth away, please. Don't become like me. Don't give it all up. Enjoy it while you have it, guys. Please. Please. Thank you.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like to reiterate it?
My name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, I have to tell you that I'm proud of you for letting the young guys basically, giving them a little insight on how you suffered and you've admitted basically wasted your life on just dealing with your hair loss situation. The fact that you were so miserable, the fact that you were unable to move on with your life. even though you had a career, you were a New York City police officer. You ended up getting married and having children. All wonderful stuff. You've never been able to be happy.
I wouldn't exactly say that.
Well, in most cases, it's good stuff. At least according to you. I mean, you decided you married your wife because of your hair loss. You may have ended up with somebody else. Whatever the situation is. But that's the advice that we try to give these young guys all the time. There's life after hair loss. Do not, at this point, you guys are so lucky that you're in a position that you're in right now. Even with what we have today, when Joe and I started to lose our hair, there was nothing out there. Joe made some mistakes that a lot of guys our age, Joe's a couple of years older than I am, made back in the 80s. And I guess you started in the late 70s, Joe.
Actually, yeah, right.
When was your?
I was chemically castrated in the late 70s by my good friend,
Dr. Norm Norentrack.
Yes.
Right. But the guys out there that are just, they can't deal with it. People are saying that society is putting more pressure on men now to look good. But the truth is, the pressure was there, man. The pressure was there when we were young. The pressure was there, at least in my life, it was certainly there. There was no doubt that, even back in the, early 80s, you had to be, in order to compete as far as attractiveness as a young person, you had to be jacked. You had to be, you had to have good hair, especially back then. Hair was everything. At least now, kids can shave their heads. And it's looked at as, it's much more acceptable. When we were kids, we didn't have that option, especially late 70s, early 80s. Hair was everything. So I don't think that the pressure to be attractive has changed that much for men. Maybe it has. Maybe it's just more spoken about now, but the pressure was still there. It was definitely there. And I think that's why we were both fucked up at a young age from it.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you fully understand the point I'm trying to make. The point is, these cats, in a couple of short years, we don't have a cure. We have an effective treatment.
I understand the point. Of course I understand the point.
They still have their youth. But a cat like me, I'll have more hair. In my 50s, I'll have significantly more hair in a couple of years. No doubt about that. But my youth is gone forever. And I can never recapture that. And these guys are bitching. Guys, you're going to have your youth and your hair. Imagine how I feel, guys. Please, get a grip and be thankful for the position you're in. You understand my point, Spencer?
I absolutely understand your point.
In the world.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I may be the leading expert in the hair loss industry, but as far as the science of hair loss, I know what everybody else knows. That's it.
Well, you don't know as much as Desmond 84. On the Bold Truth Talk. This cat, he knows what Atiran is doing. He knows what Histogen is capable of. He knows what Algan is capable of. It's cat.
But Joe, that's the beauty of the beauty of the message forums. The really smart guys, the guys that kind of have the wherewithal to decipher what's quasi entertainment and what's reality. These are the guys that really benefit from using the message forums, and a lot of these guys who do understand that see that there's a lot of unhappy young guys out there. They're out there with all this bro science. Part of what goes on in the forums is there's a certain amount of entertainment value, and the guys know it. But sadly, some of the younger guys, maybe the more vulnerable guys, don't really understand that. And they kind of take the word of anonymous posters as the gospel. And then we kind of set things straight, on the program. And I think that's why it's so important to have this connection, to the forum, so that our forum users can, they can read through everything. They could, ask questions to experts and so on and so forth. But they can also come to us afterwards and say, hey, listen, is this the reality of the situation? And we can kind of set them straight. I see what goes on, and I see a lot of guys spend a lot of time doing research just like you, Joe. And some of these guys spend...
No, but just sorry.
Go ahead. You going to tell me your point again? Go ahead. Tell me your point.
You ought to have Desmond 84 on the air. He knows what Hadron is capable of. He knows what Histogen is capable of. He knows what allergens do. He knows it all. This guy has great insight. He has the inside information. You ought to get him on the air.
That's a good idea, Joe. That would be kind of fun.
And I mean that in a very sarcastic manner.
I know you
I
do.
really think this guy is full of you know what, but that's besides the point. He makes me sick personally. I'm sorry, but the more I read his post, the more upset I get.
Well, I wouldn't get too upset. Everyone has their opinions, and that's just the way that it is. In the end, none of it really matters. You know what matters? That there's a group of people out there really trying to help each other out. And there are those who are helping each other emotionally and trying to provide whatever information they can. And then there are the assholes of the world. And I'm not saying this guy is. I'm not even quite sure. I don't read a lot of the forum, to tell you the truth. I read it like once a week. So I don't know what you're really referring to as far as this particular poster. But there's a lot of guys who think they're know-it-alls. But again, that's a forum. You know, that's the beauty of this free exchange of information. So I wouldn't take it too personally. I wouldn't get too upset about it, Joe.
Guys on the forum now asking on the chat room why I don't post. Because I don't have the information to post. I don't have the connections to add around this, Jim, like these so-called posters do. I'm not going to lie to you guys, millions of people out there. I don't have any information.
Well, and that's the thing. You know, you also don't have the time. You know, you're doing your research to argue with guys and whatever it is. You know, it takes a certain type of person to really get into using a forum. And I listen. I admire some of these guys. Some of these guys are really out there trying to help others. And you have posters like Tracy C., who gets a lot of shit on the forum, but I think the bottom line is she is trying to help people. So
she's hated. She's hated.
I know, but I admire her because she doesn't give a shit. She goes out there, she does her thing, she says it like it is, you know, and good, bad, or indifferent, she's willing to answer people's questions and talk about her hair transplant experience. And this is a woman that had a hair transplant. I think she had 2. You know, this woman had to deal with hair loss from a young age who has overcome it for the most part. So you talk about, you know, an emotional roller coaster. You got these guys, we're dudes. You know, we're men. And, you know, we're crumbling from this shit. This is a woman who had to live her life as a hair loss sufferer. How difficult must that be? I admire her greatly. 888-659-3727.
Well,
Joe, before I take another call, do you have any news, anything specific you want to talk about?
Well, I do have a little bit of news. I know Dr. Frank is coming on. I'd like to, you know, get a crack at him, if you don't mind. If it's just a few questions to him, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I have some very quick news. It's nothing spectacular. Al gave David Plycott. He's all over the internet. They're having a conference called the first week in February. He's strongly insinuating that Al didn't let Latisse product grow significant amounts of hair, and it's going to be the biggest product at their company. You know, that's what he stated.
Dude, I gotta say, you really sound like you have marbles. You really sound like you have marbles in your mouth today.
I'm suffering from a cold, Spencer, tonight.
Do you have like cotton balls in your mouth or something?
Well, I may have something else in my mouth. You never know.
Oh, Jesus. There you go.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm suffering from a cold.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Well, the bottom line is David Plycott, he's all over the place. He's not bragging about his allergen products. So I'm not saying what it does. I have no information. I'm just stating the statements that he has made. That's the only information. Secondly, Cosmo Pharmaceuticals recently announced last week that in 2015, the product for hair loss will be on the market, which is a very strong topical DHT inhibitor.
Yeah, that's interesting news, Joe. That's definitely interesting.
Well, in my expert opinion, that's not really the strong factor in hair loss. Because say you castrated tomorrow, your hair wouldn't grow back.
Well, you know, well, let me tell you something. You know why? You know why I think it's important? Because there's so many guys who are shit scared to take finasteride because of the possible long-term adverse side effects that are being anecdotally reported all over the internet. This may give guys another option to attack hair loss truly at the root of the problem. You know, without taking something systemically, even though you know this stuff is going to be absorbed in your scalp. There will be some systemic effects. There's a good chance that the potential adverse side effects will be far less than taking the pill. Now, you know how I feel about finasteride. I'm not going to go on it. You know, this is a drug that changed my life.
Yes, I know how you feel.
If it wasn't, am I boring you? If it wasn't,
no.
I'm just fucking with you.
Of course, especially my best friend and your God, man.
I'm giving you shit. I'm busting balls here. But if it wasn't for this drug, I never would have written The Bald Truth. I wouldn't be on the air right now. None of this would have happened. So when I hear young guys, when I read that they're so scared to take this drug, I understand it, because I think if I had this information back in the day, or whether it's misinformation, whether there's legitimate information out there, whatever it is, I know there are guys who are truly suffering out there for sure. So I think there's a subset of guys who are affected adversely for the long term. However, we know it's relatively minimal. But with that said, I might not have taken it either. It may have done a great disservice for me to read this stuff, and I might not be here today with my quasi-comb-over. So, I feel and it's a constant theme. It's still on Bald Truth Talk. I understand it and I respect it, but I feel really bad for the young guys who truly have an opportunity to hold their hair loss at bay until something better comes along, especially now that we're so much closer. Listen, dude, I'm going to put you on.
The bottom line is...
Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm going to put you on hold. I'll keep you...
Can I say this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Your allergen coming out soon, and doctors will be making their own concoctions as soon as Phase 2 is released, which is months away. You'll have something new on the market. That's the bottom line. Which attacks hair loss is a PGD2 inhibitor, a prostaglandin inhibitor, the bimatoprost. It attacks hair loss totally different way from finasteride and minoxidil, which may not have helped a lot of people. This could certainly help people who haven't been helped with this other drug.
Yeah, and that was a mouthful, but well said. I'm going to I'll keep you potted up.
Yeah. By the way, the 7721, 7221. I think this guy needs some help, because he's a hater, man.
Dude, don't worry about the chat room when you're on the show. The chat room it's completely separate. You can go in there and you can chat with people, but don't even worry about it.
You said for last week, I must have made it in this business because I'm not being attacked viciously.
Well, yeah, unless you're attacked out there. Once you become a quasi-public figure, unless you're attacked, you haven't done anything successful. You haven't really made it. You haven't been effective. You haven't been effective unless you get some haters. All right, dude.
Thank you, Spencer. I appreciate it.
All right. Let's see. Actually, let me put you on hold for a sec. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on The Bald Truth. Who's this? Hello? Hey, you're on The Bald Truth. Who's this? Hey, you're on the Bald Truth. Who's this? Can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear me? This is Dr. Frank.
Hey, Dr. Frank. How are you, man?
Oh, I didn't know you were because I thought I heard you say, I'll put you on hold for a second, and then you were going to take another caller. But I'm doing fine. I was listening to your last call. I didn't get it from the beginning, so I didn't know exactly, what his situation was. But here I am.
Well, just so you know, you're relatively new to the whole Bald Truth family. So Joe from Staten Island is a hair loss sufferer who's been calling the program since my very first night on the air on WABC, 77 AM in New York City, about 14 years ago, and he hasn't left me alone since. So he's a super fan of the show, and he's kind of become a sidekick of sorts who does all of the online research and comes and brings the news to our listeners. And he's a guy that's been suffering for many, many years. Had a bad hair transplant originally with Dr. Norman Orentrike back in the late 70s, and he's had some other bad work done. So he is a...
I heard him say...
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard him say that he was chemically castrated, so I didn't know if that was exactly what that...
He was basically... let me see if he's still there. He can tell you what his situation is. Hold on for one sec. Let's see. Joe, you still there?
Of course I'm here. So I've been here for 14 years. Where would I go?
Let Dr. Frank know what...
Good evening, Dr. Frank.
Hi.
Let him know let him know what happened to you, and then I'm going to take some time with Dr. Frank.
Well, I'll make it brief. I know you've been 1,000. I have a couple questions for you. First of all, I was chemically castrated by Dr. Norman Orentrike in the late 70s, early 80s. Progesterone, oral spironolactone, estrogen. It did nothing for my hair. Then I had hair transplants from various doctors. They're really not that bad. The problem is, I spoke to know some doctors have seen me. It's not that bad. They've stayed the same length for 30 years. They never get any longer. That's my story.
And
Okay.
then that's kind of a bizarre phenomenon that we don't really understand, Doc. I mean, I've seen that before, and I'm assuming that the hairs are just kind of like growing at a very very short cycle, and kind of replacing themselves.
I mean, I'm sure that's what's happening. Does your first of all, I'd have to see you to really get a much better feel. But does your donor area in the back grow longer?
It grows like wildfire, my donor area, doctor. Half an inch to 3/4 an inch. The sideburns grow, the temple grows, everything grows like wildfire. The transplants, they've never fallen out. They stay the same length for 30 years.
It's interesting. It's unusual. We commonly see the first cycle, the first anagen cycle of the transplanted hair, somewhat apparent, whether they're extra curly or kinky until they go through the fallout, or shorter. But for 30 years, that's a little bit different. So, but it's all about your appearance and what you do with it, and how you style it, and how you go about doing it. Because
I tell you that
so many ways.
You're addressing Joe as though he was a completely normal person. I know that that's the way that's the way you should definitely address him. But Joe is a guy that walks around because of this, wearing a bandage on his head and a baseball cap since he's retired from the police force. And I know that sounds bizarre, but I mean, we were at Blog World in June. With the International Association of Internet Broadcasters, and Joe, it was in New York, so Joe wanted to stop by. He stopped by, and he basically, I mean, the guys that didn't believe it saw him. He wears a bandage around his head.
I mean, it sounds unbelievable, and it's it's a big problem for him. So, kudos to if he's been on your show for 14 years. I mean, it's a tremendous service, because wearing a bandage and a ball cap on your head is it's a real emotional challenge for someone. So just having an opportunity to express yourself and not be isolated and alone, which could be devastating, is has a lot of value in and of itself. And I mean, you may have the situation, but you're not the only person that's had either trials with transplants, or has done nothing and is just suffering from hair loss, and is really, or other people that have other issues, whatever they may be, and they've directed those issues towards their hair.
Now,
having the opportunity to share that with people is very, it's helpful.
Now, do you see a lot of guys in your practice who are? I mean, listen, we're all devastated to some degree, and it really depends on our makeup. You're a hair loss sufferer yourself, who's been through transplants. I mean, what was it like? What was it like for you? And we can talk about your background and everything, but what was it like for you emotionally when you were dealing with your hair loss?
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't introduce me, I am relatively new to the Alliance and the Bald Truth talk, but I've been doing hair for a number of years. So I'm, and as a hair loss sufferer myself, so I am in a position to comment. But as a hair loss sufferer, emotionally, it comes in phases. It comes and goes. When I was younger, it was a challenge. I was asking my hairdresser, my barber at the time, what was going on.
How old were you when it started?
Probably 19 or 20, and I can't say I was psychologically distraught. I had other things going on, but I was aware of it and concerned about it.
Well, you were a professional, and I talked about it. I did introduce you, and I guess you hadn't called in, but I talked about your background. I talked about the fact that you were an NFL football player. You played for the 49ers. You have 2 Super Bowl rings, and during that time, that's when you started to go to medical school. So you have a really unique story. But so during your being a professional athlete, I mean, this is the time, 19 years old, you're starting to lose your hair. I mean, I guess you had a lot to focus on because you were always in training and you were kind of focused on something, becoming, going to playing college football and then becoming a professional athlete.
Well, and I think my hair loss started before I was a professional, maybe even younger, in my middle and late teens. So, but I was somebody with a tremendously big, full head of hair with an afro, also a big white afro. So. And this was back in the 70s and 80s. But, and that's a different subset of people. If you have a lot of hair loss sufferers have, the change for them and for me was so dramatic that that delta, so to speak, presents a problem. You know, it's different from somebody that just is early and has a little bit of hair loss.
Sure.
So, I mean, as you know from doing this and being around people and conversing with people, you know, there's a wide range of psychological emotions, but the whole psychology of it is so important. And
it's everything.
I mean, I'm a hair transplant surgeon, and I, you know, I interact not mostly, but so commonly with hair transplant surgeons, and as technicians and hair transplanters, you know, it's incumbent upon us not to lose sight of the fact that there's a bigger picture out there, that there's a whole human around us. And I think even as patients, we get so wrapped up in the technology and what's the latest and the greatest and the cost and the new things and everything that we can do. But like I was saying to Joe, there's a lot of other things involved. It's like how you deal with it. Now, I mean, you're talking about Joe, and then I'm getting a picture of who he is if he's wearing a bandage and a ball cap.
Yeah. And you have to also understand, Joe is he was one of New York City's finest. He was a cop for 20 years, and he was dealing with this while he was a police officer. And, you know, he's wearing a hat when he's on the job, but he retired early because of, you know, basically he was, you know, psychologically disabled, and he blames everything that transpired, you know, his hair loss, number one, and all the, you know, the bad surgeries. And
I mean, this is an unbelievable story. I mean, I've heard early stories of people like this, but I've never heard it to this degree.
And he's, you know, and Joe, not to take the crown away from you, so to speak, but there's worse out there. We had a guy, and I don't know if he's able to listen to the show anymore, but he was, he basically, I don't think he went to Orange Track. I think he went to somebody else in the early '80s, another New Yorker, who ended up kind of stepping out of life, just becoming a recluse. He broke up with his girlfriend at the time. He was also an athlete, and he had an opportunity to be a professional athlete, and he just couldn't move forward in life. He lives in a walk-up apartment in Brooklyn, rent-controlled apartment, and lives off of some sort of inheritance and some sort of disability. And for the longest, he was just calling us from a rotary phone. He said he lived a very simple life, and you know, these are the extremes, but I'd like to bring out these examples because they exist. And I think a lot of the doctors, you know, they're around it so much. It's hard to believe that there's a subset of guys out there who are so affected by it, because you kind of probably see, you know, you see different ends of the spectrum, but they're probably all middle of the road. You know, you're upset, it's affected your life, but you know, they're still living their lives.
Yeah, but you know,
yeah.
I mean, the whole dynamic, the whole culture of the psychology of hair loss. I mean, it's important how we as individuals talk to other people that are suffering and are sensitive. And I don't want to sound insensitive too, but you know, speaking as a hair loss sufferer myself, it's also important not to, you know, to try to not buy into it too much, because it can just, you know, consume you.
I agree.
And you know, you want to address it and acknowledge it. And I've been doing this my whole career as a physician, you know, for 20 years. I'm a Columbia-based physician, and with somebody with an ailment, whether it's a psychological problem with their hair loss or a headache or anything else, you know, the first thing I want to do is acknowledge it and be empathic and understand it and recognize it. But then beyond that, it's important to formulate a plan and not to be too drawn into it and not let it be all consuming, because if that happens, then it just creates a whole you know, bundle of problems that are never going to go away.
Well, and that's the whole theme.
That's a fine line.
The theme of what we do, you know, the theme of the show, really, the theme of what I've been putting out here for the last 15 years is that there's life after hair loss. And really what this platform is for is, you know, we're here to vent and talk and share and to learn from each other and to learn about the latest and greatest of what's going on, and to talk to guys like Joe and guys who are more middle of the road as far as the way their hair loss affects them. But, you know, my whole message is, whatever it is, you have to learn to deal with it and move on with your life the best way you can. Listen, Doc, I'm extremely fortunate that I got on finasteride when I was young. I've lost ground over the years. My hair is not what I like it to be. You know, it's a combination of a enough hair to kind of comb it over and to put some makeup in the back and to wear hairspray. And, some days are better than others, but it is what it is. I've learned to deal with it, and I kind of, I poke fun of myself. And sometimes it's like it's a pain in the ass, to go. I can't go on a roller coaster, for instance, or like a windy day is a pain in the ass. I go to the beach, I put on a hat. But it is what it is. I've learned to live with it, and I turned my Achilles heel into my passion, into my lifelong career.
How did you do that?
How did I do it?
What happened? What snapped for you? Because I know you were. I remember meeting you a long time ago, and I think and you were maybe just starting the forum, and you were a different person than you are today, because you were still very upset by it, and I think you were playing into it.
Well, it must have been a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, I started about 15 years ago. And the forum itself, I've only had the forum up for about 4.5 years, but our resources have been around for about 15 years. How did
you make the switch? How did you do that?
I just kind of evolved. I just realized that, hey, I even when I think I met you 10 years ago, I'd already had a modicum of success. The books were flying off the shelves. I was really, moving in the direction where, things were working out. I had a really good personal life. And I kind of just realized, you know what? I'm upset by this. It still affects me, but somehow life is still good. And I kind of embraced that. And I just wanted to share that with all of my, all the people that kind of became attached to this fraternity.
That's not easy to do.
No, absolutely not, man. It is not easy to do.
Because it sounds, we're talking to Joe, and if he's still wearing a bandage and a ball cap, it sounds like he is yet, to break through that. And
well, can I ask him a couple of questions? Dr. Frank, 2 questions, please.
Yeah, go ahead, and then we're going to take some calls, Joe. But go ahead.
First of all, Dr. Fellows told me, as Spencer knows, he seems to think, it wasn't that bad, that I'm kind of exaggerating my situation. But my question to Dr. Frank is, A, do you utilize sideburn hair, temple hair, and beard hair, body hair, chest hair, in your practice?
Do I utilize it as a donor, or do I transplant into those areas?
Do you use it as a donor? I mean, donor to the scalp. Do you utilize temple hair?
I mean, I think the temple area in select individuals can be a valuable donor area, and in the right person, I've had success with that. So, I don't know I don't know the sort of the history of your question, if you've had problems with the temporal area or what have you, but a number of
my temple area is virgin.
Yeah. I mean, the temple areas can be a challenge for a lot of doctors because it's an area where there's a lot of vasculature, and if you're not comfortable in that area, and if you haven't done I mean, I've been a facelift surgeon for a number of years, so that is really an area and a skull-based surgeon, so I'm very familiar with the anatomy, and so it gives me the luxury of being able to use that area, and there's a lot of valuable hair there, and for people that in maybe an early class of balding, an early Norwood, where they really do have a lot of frontal tufted hair, using some of the temple hair which would actually can be effective. Now, it's somebody that has really thick temple hair and is progressing and has really thin on the top. Just thinning out the temporal hair can make your whole global hair vision look better, because there's not going to be a tremendous contrast. Because when you see somebody who's thin on the top and so thick on the sides, just that contrast alone can look bad. So if you use that temple hair, whether for FUT or FUE, you're thinning out the sides of the scalp, and very, very few. Nobody really ever complains that their temples are too thin. So for those reasons, I think it can be a pretty good area. As far as those other areas you're mentioning, the actual sideburns, I guess you could do that. I don't know if I've ever done that, but because I've usually most of the people that come to me that may feel like their donor area is depleted, because I've had a lot of experience as a surgeon, either with FUE or with FUTs, I'm able to find, more donor areas. So don't feel desperate like I need to go into the sideburns. You mentioned the beard and things like that. I'm a little reluctant to do that because it's a little more difficult to hide scars on the face. I mean, you can hide them under the chin and things like that, but
there are guys like, we had William Yates on the show, I think it was last week, and, he's a proponent now of beard hair, where initially he was a little more conservative, and he had it done himself. I think Dr. Cole performed it on him, and, and he is, he's a black guy, African-American guy, and I guess the concern was, the possible, hypopigmentation and, white dots, the white dot scarring. And he didn't get any of that on himself. So what he started to kind of experiment in his own practice, and he's been having some really consistent results. There are guys like Dr. Pasanga, who's another IHRS member in Brussels, who is really been able to utilize, beard hair for a lot of corrective surgery. So I think for the right candidate, from what I'm hearing, the doctors who have been experimenting with it and who have had a lot of experience with it, they eventually hone it to the point where it's viable, especially for the guys who have significant scarring. They have no really limited donor area, and they're the right candidate for the procedure. So, I'm noticing it's becoming a little bit more popular. Now, there are some guys out there, in my view, who are really throwing a lot of hype out there. So we're seeing it online a lot more. Some guys are kind of utilizing body hair and beard hair as almost like the first line of attack, saying that, you have basically this will offer almost unlimited donor. When I don't see it that way. I see it as a last resort.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not really the standard of care, and it's uncommon. I mean, if you take a pool of 100 people that have had, a number of transplants, only a fraction are going to be completely donor depleted at some point in their life. And,
right.
You have to go to body hair, and whether you do it with FUE or some other way, then it should be done. But it's not that common.
No, it's not that common. Actually, there's only a handful of surgeons who are really doing it on a regular basis. And there are guys like John Cole and Pasanga, like I said, and now William Yates, who are feeling more and more comfortable utilizing it. And I wouldn't be talking about it in a positive light, Doc, if I didn't see the results for myself. So I'm starting to see them come in. Initially, I was like, listen, you guys got to hold off on that. Now it's more like if you find the right doctor who's been doing it a lot, then it could be an option for those who are desperate enough and need it. But listen, Joe, I'm going to take some phone calls, man. I will keep you on hold. All right.
Just one quick thing. I think Dr. Frank should tell people where his practice is, so the audience knows. I believe you're in Manhattan, Doctor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm new to the forum and the alliance, but I've been in Midtown Manhattan for the last 8 years, and we have some satellite offices on the West Coast and in Central Ohio, but predominantly in Manhattan, and we're here in Midtown.
All right, Joe. Listen.
All right, thanks for your time, Spencer.
All right, you got it, bro.
Thank you, Dr. Frank, for I really appreciate your help.
All right.
Good luck with everything, Joe.
888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Give us a call here at The Bald Truth. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on The Bald Truth. Who's this?
Spencer, it's Marcus, calling you from the bowels of the Big Apple.
Hey, Marcus, man. How are you? Long time.
Always good to speak with you. And Dr. Frank, as a fellow Buckeye, I can speak hair loss to the point of being despondent, but trying to pick up on Spencer's theme of there is life after hair loss. Let's shift to the Super Bowl. Come on, guys.
I'm happy to talk about the Super Bowl. I felt like this was my first time on the Bald Truth talk, so
yeah, go ahead.
I was excited to ask Spencer about his. I felt like I was a little bit.
Okay, you guys.
But anyway,
talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's 2 rings. One of those rings is big enough, man. I don't know how you fit the other one on, but that being the case, you must be lining up on the 49ers this weekend.
Of course. Right. They're so exciting. They have so many weapons, and 2 weeks ago in the first round of the playoffs, Kaepernick was a running quarterback, and so they thought they were going to shut that down. and which they did. But then he just opened up Vernon Davis in the running game, so it's very exciting. I'm still friendly with the organization, and it's an amazing time. It's going to be a good game.
I'm curious, what made you, a lot of professional athletes end up, staying in the game in some aspect or another. What made you leave the game and decide to pursue medicine?
Thank you for asking. I was going into medicine come hell or high water, and I was just very lucky. I'm from Western Pennsylvania, so when you go up there, they throw you a football before you can walk.
Right, that's football country.
That's what it's all about.
I went to Penn State.
So there So that's what it's all about there. And I was fortunate that I was around good coaches, and I had a baseline decent athleticism, and so I was able to take it to a high level without getting injured. But all along, I was in focused on going to med school, and I was actually in med school at the same time while I was playing part-time medical school. So there was nothing that I was going to do to lose sight of that. I just never wanted to be in football my whole life. I just didn't think that it was something I was going to do forever. And a lot of my friends went into coaching or broadcasting, but I just had a different calling.
And I admire that. I mean, because you would be just listening to your pipes and just the way you express yourself, and also just your mannerisms. I have met you. You're a big guy. You would look good on camera. It would seem that would be the direction that you would go. And you probably, I don't know if you've ever gotten any offers, but I'm assuming that there were others in the business that probably said the same thing.
I think my mother said, she's dumbfounded why I don't go into, broadcasting. But since I was a child, I wanted to go into medicine, and I've made such a sacrifice, and I've done so much that, and I enjoy it. There's nothing that can really look. You don't have feel good stories every day in medicine as a hair transplant doctor or the head and neck surgeon. And there's plenty of things to bemoan about medicine and being a doctor. But when you get your occasional home runs in medicine, you realize why you went into it in the first place, and it's very difficult to walk away from, and you're glad you do it. So that's what it's all about.
I think that's cool, and it's very, very admirable.
And you get that, and even in hair transplant, and I'm still just amazed by. Like I said, you don't get the feel-good stories every day, but when somebody comes in at 6 months or a year and they've had a great transplant and they say, "Doc, I'm really happy. There's in some ways you've turned my life around, and it's just amazing." And everybody in my office, they turn to me and they're like, "Doc, you have to talk to me. So happy." I'm still always looking for ways that we can improve upon that. Okay. What's hidden here? I get it. You're happy, but what else? Is there anything that we could do differently? And that's just who I am. So probably to a fault. And so that's the long and the short of it. I'm happy to be on the radio, but it's not easy to be on camera too. It's like. It takes a special skill set, and some people are really good at it. Some of my former teammates are terrific at it, and others have flopped at it. So.
Okay, it's definitely not easy. In doing what I do, now that I'm on camera, and I've been on radio for so long, but I have to put a camera in the studio, and being so open about it, having a hair loss problem and making fun of my hairstyle and stuff like that, I'm heavily scrutinized. So that is I would say that I'm in a pretty uniquely difficult position, putting myself out there, doing what I do. So I get it, man. I am criticized. I read some stuff about me online, about my hair sometimes, that it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. But, if it's something that you really enjoy doing, then it's, you kind of get good at it, and you kind of embrace it all, embrace the haters as well.
Yeah, but, you're good. You have the gift. So not everybody has that too, the gift of gab, just to be able to really hold a conversation. And it's, I'm sure it requires that as well. So, and not everybody can do that.
Well, I appreciate that. So, Marcus, do you have any other specific questions for Dr. Frank?
No, just a last comment. First of all, obviously, Dr. Frank's story tells us that he did not suffer a concussion while playing football. That's good news. Secondly, he dispels the notions of the dumb jock, which that's another stereotype that hangs out there.
That's right.
And one thing I've noticed, whether it's football, baseball, you name it, many of them are coming forward to becoming more media savvy, whether it's during their playing days or afterwards. And these are highly intelligent individuals, and they clearly know what's going on, and they're changing lives, as he's telling us tonight.
I think that's well said, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. I was always very fearful of being labeled as a dumb jock, and so I always sort of had a chip on my shoulder to dispel that notion. And I mean, playing professional football, even college football and basketball at a high level, it's sort of like it's almost like going to war sometimes. I mean, you get paid and you get all the perks and the benefits and the glamour, etc. But at the end of it, when you're 25 or 27 years old and those days are over, it can be frequently is a very, very sad story because you've had your best years behind you and you haven't even turned 30.
That's the thing. I can imagine it becomes a really lonely place for a lot of guys.
Right. I'm sure it does, and it's out there, and you read about it, and I just happen to be very fortunate. I was really well, sheltered by my parents and guided well, but most of my friends that played in the NFL. And I'll confess myself, it is a very, very difficult transition after doing that. And you go through years of watching and wondering how you're going to replace that excitement and the roar of the crowd and everything else that goes along with that, the camaraderie, the locker room stuff, which is fun. It's really in many ways irreplaceable, but you have to move on. But for me, I've been really fortunate. I have a beautiful wife and a nice young family and a nice career. So I'm just very, very lucky, and I'm very thankful and appreciative. So
that's fascinating that you compare it to war, because obviously Woody Hayes always thought of it in those terms too. But it really reminds me of every guy's favorite feminist, Camille Paglia, down at the University of Pennsylvania. She made a comment once saying that women will not attain positions of power in America until they understand the NFL.
Well,
that's pretty heavy.
There's many women, reporters now as there are men, and they fight an uphill battle to be taken seriously, and they're still they're fighting against the odds. And that's just an amazing phenomenon. The whole football, and now I'm saying it as an outsider, just as you and I, it's really an amazing phenomenon that 150 or 180 million people are going to watch the Super Bowl, and I'm hard pressed to learn what it is about this sport which is so captivating. And
you guys are like it's like modern day gladiators.
You know what? It really is. It really is. And the NFL tries to limit the injuries and the violence, but it's part of it too.
That's right. That's part of the excitement. I mean, listen, I don't watch hockey because I don't want to see a fight. We're waiting for that. People want to see that. Now, obviously, football, is a different situation. But I mean, when you guys get on the field, it is exciting for everyone, and people want to see that excitement, and it doesn't change throughout generation after generation.
Yeah.
So, another part though, Spencer, that it seems to me is you're right. Contact is a big part of the lure, and that's why that drives eyeballs to TV screens. However, I also feel that football is sort of an American chessboard. There's so many moving parts at once. You got 22 of them.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously complex. And when you think that, in the old days when you had Namath and so forth, those guys could call their own plays. You can't do that now. The game is too fast. There's too much happening at breakneck speed. You've got offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, and people backing them up directing the show.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
There's a lot of different things going on. The strategies that you're mentioning, the contact that Spencer's talking about. You also have these, these redemption stories of people like Ray Lewis. And on every play in football, people are getting knocked down and getting back up. So I think as a viewer, it's an opportunity to see somebody, getting leveled and then just getting back up. And these are things that, we as, civilians or just, viewers of football, we face these things all the time, in our lives, right. Metaphorically. And football is sort of a microcosm for that. We have our tough times, and we just, we pull ourselves up, and those guys are setting the bar for that. They're setting the example.
That's great,
Marcus. Man, listen.
That's great.
I want to thank you for calling in, as always. Thanks for the great conversation.
Always a pleasure. And Spence, man, when you get to New York, let's pull Joe out of his his hive, and maybe we'll meet up with Dr. Frank sometime, and we'll.
Dude, we can hang out with the guys at GFQ down at the old Scores where they do the show, Sapphires. That'd be a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
Look, my wife doesn't mind. Every once in a while, we'll sit in the back and have some dinner.
Love it.
All right, Marcus.
Hey, have a great night, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the call, bro. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Let's take another call, and then we're going to take a break. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hello. Am I on the air?
You are.
Oh, hi. This is my name's Eric from Baltimore, Maryland. Actually.
Hey, Eric. What's happening? What can I do for you?
Well, I'm struggling with a lot of things that a lot of the people who call in do. Basically, I'm 29 years old. I'm in a better condition than some people. I'm about a Norwood 2.5, and I'm really just struggling with the decision of whether or not to take action with the hair transplant or not. I came very, very close, and I had a appointment all set up and put down a deposit with one of the top hair transplant surgeons, and just I backed out at the last minute, and I just wanted to know if there's any guidance for how do you make that decision.
I'll give you my advice as a layman and as an expert in the industry, and then I'll let Dr. Frank chime in. But my thing is, surgery is always going to be there, man. If you are Norwood 2, how old are you, first of all?
Just turned 29.
And how long have you been losing your hair?
Kind of hard to say. It became noticeable about probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't have a family history of extensive hair loss. No one in my family has like a horseshoe pattern or anything like that. So, in my family, the recession is common and a little bit of thinning on top. So, it's nowhere near as drastic as what some people are.
Now, have you seen a doctor about medical treatment? Like finasteride?
I've been taking Propecia now for about a little over close to 2.5 years, and it's stabilized my condition.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're using the drug, and I'm glad that it's working for you. And I'm assuming that you're not having any adverse side effects.
If I am, they're imperceptible.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I haven't had any problems with
that. That's good to hear. My philosophy is this. I am 47 years old, and I've been able to hold off having a hair transplant because of finasteride and a little luck and probably some genetics. I choose not to go under the knife because I'm concerned about shock loss at this stage because I still have a lot of hair, luckily, and I'm willing to, use cosmetics in the back to kind of diminish that contrast between my scalp and my hair and hairspray.
I wanted to ask you about that because I've always heard you say you use makeup on the back of your head. Are you talking about concealer or anything? Because I've never tried anything like that. I do have full coverage everywhere except for my hairline and my temples.
I use a product called Derm Match, and for me it works well because it gives good coverage. It adds a certain amount of thickness and volume to the thinning area in the back. I also put in my part line. So every once in a while, if you look closely, depending on whether we are hitting HD or not, you might be able to see I put too much paint on. It happens. But, for the most part, I feel it's kind of given me the opportunity to feel comfortable in my own skin without having to go under the knife. And I'm not saying that I won't at some point, but I've been able to hold off for a long time. So to me, and I say this all the time, and I know that Dr. Frank knows this, surgery is always a last resort. If you can treat your condition using medication, if you can kind of hold off until you're at a point where you really make a great candidate for surgery, then a combination of medication, surgery, and maybe cosmetic concealer can get you to a point where you have a full-looking head of hair. It really depends on your genetics. I just think that you have to be prepared when you go under the knife, always be prepared for or understand the entire scope and possible pitfalls of having surgery. And are you going to feel the same way in 5 years? would you have made this decision when you were a little older?
That's exactly why I kind of backed out. I'm pretty confident that it would give me a boost, in the short to intermediate term, but 10, 15 years down the road, I have no idea how I'm going to progress, and that's really why I held off.
Yeah. So Dr. Frank, what are your thoughts about what I said?
I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I agree with everything you're saying. It's like I have no comment because you're really you're hitting it squarely, hitting the nail on the head.
I think what happens is, a lot of guys become, they're very desperate, and having a hair transplant is sexy, especially if you're going, through the IHRS, you're finding a good doctor. For them, you're more than likely to have a good result than a poor result. So you're probably going to be able to improve your situation. But, it really depends on what your situation is. I always say, if you're less than a Norwood 3, it might not make that much of an appreciable difference in the way you feel about yourself. But it might. It really depends on the person, the shape of their head, the way their hair, the shape of their, of their face, whether they have an oval face or a round face, how high their hairline is. There's a lot of different issues, their hair characteristics. I think it's an individual decision, but I do think that it's never a bad idea to wait.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. Definitely, I came very, very close to having it done, but I backed out at the last minute, and if I lose the deposit, that's not the end of the world or anything like that. One question, and I kind of like to get the doctor's opinion on this too, is I have very, very straight, very fine hair, so a lot of those wow results that you see on the forum, they're not people with hair characteristics like myself. Now, I've met with, a number of the doctors, and they've all told me I'm a great candidate, for whatever that's worth. But, in terms of getting great results with fine hair, how likely is that with these trends?
Well, what color's your hair and what's your complexion and things like that? Because those have a significant bearing on this.
I have very light skin and very light blonde hair, so there's low contrast. I'm very, very light complected, blue eyes.
That's a good thing. It's the people with coarse, straight, dark hair and fair complexion which make it very difficult. But if you have fair complexion and light hair, look, if you take all the things you're talking about and you assign points to them, and then you make a decision based on all of the things, your age, the extent of your hair loss now, whether you're committed to taking Propecia, whether you've taken Propecia and it's working for you, your genetics, with your parents, such everybody in your family, what their story is, if you can get some clues there, the rate of your hair loss, and Spencer was asking you when you started to lose hair. You take all these, and the color of your hair and your complexion, you take all these issues and you add them up, and there's no scientific formula, but these are all the things that we look at and make a judgment on what to do. That portends for a good transplant, fair complexion and lighter hair. So I'm not trying to make this any more difficult for you, because there's some people that come in and they're looking for me to tell them what to do one way or the other, and I never ever have done that, and I'll never do that because people have to make up their mind. I just want to give you the information, and you're getting good information from us now. So I guess I don't have to remind you also. On top of all of that, it's like you're 29 and you are in the you're in different times. You're in the prime of your life, and so there are home run stories in transplant too.
That's right.
Which again, I don't have to remind you. You see that, and you're like, "Well, God, why can't I have that soon?" For whatever, not a exorbitant fee. So, ultimately, and I was thinking about this before I called in. At some point, you really have to just have somebody you really trust who has the experience, and if you could send Spencer even a picture of yourself, he might be able to, continue to, or me do that, to continue to give you, the right advice on what to do. And certainly doing nothing is an option.
I'd like to do that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Well, one good way to do it, if you want, is it's probably best you could do it on the forum. I don't know if you remember the forum, but you can join Bald Truth Talk. You could upload it, and you could even address it to Dr. Frank, and I don't mind taking a look, obviously. And, we can kind of give you an idea. And also, you're going to get a lot of other people chiming in, too. Some guys are going to say, go for it. Some guys are going to say, don't do it. Right now, I'm just hearing what you're saying. I have no idea what you look like. And, frankly, I just got a series of images from a guy that I've known for a very long time, Bald Truth fan, not a part of the forum, but a guy that has been a part of the show for a long time. He ended up going to Dr. Michael Biener up in Saratoga Springs, and he waited a long time before he decided to have a second transplant. He had a one transplant years ago by a doctor who doesn't have the greatest reputation in New York. Ended up going up to Saratoga and has a tremendous result. He's so happy. However, since I've seen his pictures last, which was over a decade ago, he's progressed a lot. So I thought he was a good candidate for surgery. But again, I'm not a doctor. These are just my opinions as a layman and as someone who is a hair loss sufferer who's kind of at this point avoided surgery. But I will tell you this: when the time comes, when I can't pull off the comb over, or if I'm feeling like I'm really not liking the way I look, there's a good chance I'm going to be in that chair. And I just feel fortunate enough that I've kind of done my due diligence over the years and kind of brought together the best doctors in the world. And who knows? I may end up asking 3 of them to come together and and give me a hair transplant.
Before you let me go, may I make a comment on this situation?
Yeah.
Because I'm listening to what you're saying, Spencer, and as you're saying, you're not a doctor, but you're an expert, and I'm trying to give him, Eric, the right advice. And you can get the right advice from somebody who knows hair, from Spencer, or somebody who is expert in the field. You can get as good advice from him as you could from me or any other doctor. I take a little risk by saying that, but let me qualify that. You can get that good advice. You can get as good advice or better from somebody that's been in. You'll probably get better advice from Spencer than you will from 90% of the hair transplant doctors. He's doing it. He's doing this. He's doing something different. But, at the end of the day, you need to get the advice of a doctor. Why? Because if and when you do proceed, you want somebody to take responsibility to be with you 6 months, a year, 2 years, 6 years, 10 years. Because if there is a difference or a change or there's something you're not happy about, you want somebody to take accountability with you. And if you need, some cover-up or advice on medications or what to do or just hand-holding, that's what it's really all about. So in your search, if you had somebody that you know and you trusted and you know that they're going to be around and they're going to be with you and they're not going to blow you off, and, Spencer mentioned some doctor that had a bad reputation, I would bet that doctor had got a bad reputation because he wasn't available for his people, for his patients. And so in evaluating the doctors, I think that's the single most important thing because, if you take that, if you jump into this pool, and it's a big step for you, understand, you want to make sure that somebody's going to be there with you, for as long as you need it. So, I think that's the most important thing. I think
that's great advice, Doc. Hey, man, listen, thank you for the call. If you want to post your pictures online and
I actually have. Should I just shoot you like a message on the forum, or what would be the best way to contact you after the radio show to get your guys?
Why don't you just contact Dr. Frank directly? Dr. Frank, you have an email address you can give out?
AnnaPelliHair@gmail.com. If you write that down, it's AnnaPelliHair@gmail.com. But if you Google Dr. Frank and hair, you'll be able to find.
You could also send him you could send Dr. Frank a message on Bald Truth Talk, and next time he logs in, he'll see it.
Okay, absolutely.
All right, man. Listen, thanks for the call. Good luck.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys, listen, I have to take a break in a second. I want to get another glass of wine, and I think I have to take a piss, but I'm going to take another call. So I'll give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the Bald Truth. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer. This is Vic from D.C.
Vic from D.C., how are you, man?
Hey, I just wanted to call in. I appreciate... someone in the chat room has the screen name Vic from DC. I just wanted to point out that that's really not me.
Oh, really? Someone is stealing your name in the chat.
So I just wanted to put that out there. Someone in the chat room is has the screen name Vic from DC. I just want to put that out there. I don't mind them using that, but I just want to put them out there.
Well, I appreciate that. Is he causing any trouble in the chat room?
So far it's okay. I mean,
Well, Vic, listen, you've been calling the show for how long? I mean, you're a regular caller. You become famous, man. So these guys kind of attach themselves to your username.
Well, well, I appreciate that. I pretty much that's what I mainly called in for. But I just want to say, hey, man, your shirt looks great. It's a beautiful blue shirt, and
Thanks, man.
I know you got to take a break. So I got to say, Spencer, get that glass of wine and have a great, great night. I'm going to keep watching the show.
All right, Vic, man. Thanks for the call. 888-659-3727. That was a short call, so let me take another call, and then I'll take a break. Hey, you're on the Bald Truth. Who's this? Hey, man, you're on the Bald Truth. Who's this?
Hey, man, it's George.
George from Mobile. What's happening, man? How are you? Long time.
Oh, I'm just taking care of sick pets and watching it rain and storm outside the window. And I didn't really think I was going to get on. I just had you on mute, but I was listening to Joe earlier and had a call that came in, and I had to take it. What's did Joe have any like major breakthrough news?
No, he had no major breakthrough news that I. Well, I mean, no, nothing major, nothing major. But I'll tell you what, if you want to, hang on, I'm going to pot you up in a little while. I'm going to say goodnight to Dr. Frank. I'm going to take a break, and we have about another 45 minutes left of the broadcast, and we can talk about it. All right? So I'll put you on hold.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
888-659-3727. Dr. Frank, I want to thank you for taking the time to call in tonight. It was I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I think that our callers really enjoyed having you on.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. I'm glad to be, one of your newer participants, and then I'm excited to be on and get to know you in the show more.
Absolutely, and I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I want to let everyone know if they want to contact Dr. Frank, go to iahrs.org. You can contact him directly through the website. You can also contact him through baldtruthtalk.com, and of course you can go directly to his website. Dr. Frank, you might want to spell that for people.
Anapelli, Anapelli, Anapelli.
And it might be easier, honestly, if you just check out Dr. Frank through the IHRS and contact him directly through that link or through his email address. If you're in the New York tri-state area, if you're considering surgical hair restoration, listen, guys, I always say just do your due diligence, man. Go see as many doctors, have as many consults as you feel necessary, and you got to feel comfortable with who you're going with. So, I can honestly say that I believe that anyone who's involved with the IHRS is truly doing state-of-the-art surgical hair restoration. So I don't think you can make a bad decision. But the bottom line is you need to feel comfortable. You need to see patients for yourself, speak to patients who have similar hair characteristics, speak to a doctor who who really, like Dr. Frank said, is interested in following your progress and being a part of what is happening with you. So there's doctors out there that will just do their thing, and it's going to be difficult for you to pick up the phone, give them a call, get in touch with them. I'm pretty sure from all the experience that I've had with Dr. Frank so far and from the patients who have contacted me that Dr. Frank is not one of those guys. He is a guy that is definitely interested in follow-up and really cares about his patients. So, Dr. Frank, listen, you got it, man. So thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Okay, pal. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye.
All right. 888-659-3727, 888-659-3727. I'm Spencer Kobren. You're listening to and watching The Bald Truth. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this brief break.
Coast to coast and worldwide.
I just want to say, you guys are doing a great thing. It's such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially for a guy, young guys in their early 20s. And, I'm glad that, I could tune in and, listen to you guys.
Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey, guys, welcome back. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Man, that tune like reminds me of being a kid in the 70s, watching one of those, what do they call, black exploitation movies? Like Shaft. It's my favorite. I love that shit when I was growing up. 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Dr. Frank was great. I'm so glad that he came on the program. I've been asking him to come on for a while. He's a busy dude. He has a busy practice. He's got a very interesting background. I mean, how many doctors that you know were former NFL football players who were in 2 Super Bowls? That's an impressive life. That is an incredible career. And it just goes to show you that, I mean, no matter what you're focused on in life, you could always transition into something else that's great as well. You're not just destined to do one thing in your life. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the Ball Truth. Who's this? Oh, hey, man, I'm sorry. I didn't pot you up. Who's this? You're on the Ball Truth.
Hey, it's George.
Oh, hey, George. Sorry, man. So you want to talk a little bit? Or do you want to hang on? What you want?
Yeah, well, you forgot the greatest blaxploitation film of all time, one of my favorites, which was Blackula.
Oh,
remember Blackula?
Absolutely, man.
And it's funny, the guy that played Blackula, I don't remember the actor's name. He just died recently, but he had the funky, crazy Black Dracula hair going on.
Oh, that was awesome, man.
Like the Dracula fro.
Yeah. I used to love that shit. I used to love that shit.
Yeah,
actually, it's interesting because I really gravitate to a lot of the, movies like, that really, highlight the African American culture as well. Like, I loved movies like Car Wash when I was a kid.
That was one of my favorite movies, man. Car Wash.
Love that shit.
The Car Wash movie was a classic. When Richard Pryor came through playing the preacher, coming through the car wash.
Absolutely, yeah. How can I forget that, man? To this day, when that movie comes on television, I have to stop everything.
You remember the greatest scene was when the girl was in the bathroom and the guy came up over the top of the stall with a pig face snorting, and she freaked out.
Yeah. Listen, I have to tell you, that movie and also Fort Apache, the Bronx, was, for whatever reason, black women with wigs have always turned me on since those movies. Can't explain it.
Well, I mean, I was always hot for Pam Grier back in the day. She was really hot looking.
Oh, my God. Who wasn't? You have to be made of stone not to be.
I mean, even redneck Klansmen would have done her on the sly.
Oh, you're right about that.
I mean, she was so fucking hot, man. I mean, she was just remember the Get Christy Love, remember?
Dude, I remember it all. Guy in the chat room asked if I ever had jungle fever. Now, what kind of question is that? Are you asking if I've ever, had the pleasure of knowing a black woman? I guess the answer is yes. I mean, what kind of jungle fever? What's wrong with people? What is wrong with people?
Hey, Spence, I'm sorry that I missed the doctor because I got a phone call that I had to deal with. But what was this? In a 2-sentence nutshell, what was this guy about? I mean, was he here for a specific reason, or was he just getting acquainted with your program?
Yeah, he's been with us for a while. He's a hair transplant surgeon. I asked him to come on the program. He has a really interesting background because he was a former NFL football player. And he's a guy he's just a good guy, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with him. I always enjoyed our conversations, and I thought he would be really good on the show. And he was. I mean, he drew the calls in. People wanted to ask him questions, and I think he, handled himself with not only professionalism, but, the empathy that it really takes, I think, to do what these guys do.
What was his, how old is this gentleman?
I'd say he's probably in his, when did he play? So he's probably in his early 50s now, I would say.
What was what age did he leave football and go into medicine? Obviously, it was fairly early because he had to go through med school and all that.
He was actually going through med school part-time while he was still in the NFL. So
wow, that's an interesting juggling act.
He was an Ohio Buckeye. You know, he born and raised Western Pennsylvania. You know, football guy. You know, I went to Penn State, and you know, I knew a lot of guys from like Pittsburgh and you know, other parts of Western Pennsylvania, McKeesport, Pennsylvania, where football was life, man. Absolutely.
Is there a difference between Penn State and University of Pennsylvania? Is it the same thing? Or
Yeah,
what?
it's probably about a 2-point GPA difference and an extra 400 points in your SATs. The University of Pennsylvania is Ivy League. Penn State is the Pennsylvania State University, which is a state school. Still a great university. I went to Penn State, but it is not an Ivy League school.
So University of Pennsylvania is an Ivy League school.
That's
yeah,
correct.
because I knew a man who passed away recently in his 90s who was an internationally famous lipid chemist, scientist, and he was a big scientist at University of Pennsylvania. And then I think it was University of Pennsylvania. Then he actually brought Jonas Salk there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I barely got out of high school, and I was able to go to Penn State. So, no, I mean, I was a fairly good. I went to a really competitive prep school. So when I'm saying I barely got out, I mean, if I was to go to public school, I would have been in the top 10% of my class. So it was we had to do really well just to stay in the school. So I was able to get into basically almost a school of my choice. I was very lucky in that respect.
Any new talk lately on the neogenesis front, on this growing hair follicle stuff? Is anything new happening with any of that? Or is it still in the same place it was 3 months ago last time we talked about it?
Still there, man. It's still in the same place. Now,
how about that chick, that Cristiano chick you had on there before, Angela, the doctor? Is there anything new from her?
I haven't spoken to her in a while. I promised a couple of guys, regulars, that I would contact her. I have not. I have been busy with life and other things in my career. But if there was something new, we would know. But I should give her a call and have her on the show.
Well, I'm just thinking about her because she was on that. Sex Lies and Toupee tape thing that I had recorded. I called you about where I found you with the crazy hair.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
So hey man, nobody can see it. It doesn't matter. But she was on that program.
Yeah, well, that was a long time ago. Yeah, she was good. We were friends. We haven't spoken in a while. I mean, we've been in contact. I think the last time was maybe about a year and a half ago. And she's still in the hair world. She's at all the major conferences, but there's nothing major that we can report on. So I wish I had better news for you, dude.
How about anything from Dr. Bauman, and how about that guy that was with
this guy Boston Baldy keeps asking about this biocapitation, treatment. Listen, dude, I don't have a lot of information on it. If you want to contact, Dr. Frank about it, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to explain exactly what it is. My goal and my concern in dealing with Dr. Frank is that he is an excellent hair transplant surgeon, and that's why he's part of the IHRS. Period. So, give him a call. We'll have him on the show again.
I'm not trying to bust your balls about that. That's just, something that I know a lot of people are interested in.
What's that?
Because that represents the holy grail, the neogenesis thing, being able to replicate an unlimited number of donor follicles, from some non-DHT sensitive follicles, and be able to harvest a few and create an unlimited supply.
No,
I don't know why
that is the holy grail. That is the holy grail, and that's what we're all
I don't know why it's taking these fucking guys so long. If they can grow back the end of somebody's amputated finger, I don't know why the hell they can't figure that shit out.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Joe. Hey, Spencer. It's Sam.
Sam, what's happening, man? How are you?
Not much, bro. How are you guys? Give me 1 second. Let me just... it's a little chilly outside.
Hey, Sam.
All right. So I called the other week, and it was a bad time because it was a different show. It was a free-for-all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember you saying.
It's too bad I can't see the chat room right now. I'd love to see everyone saying crazy things, but taking a little walk outside, and I thought I'd want to repeat my story and a little bit about me and what I've done, and maybe this can help others.
Sure, let's hear about it.
Okay, so about 20 years old, I started noticing nothing too severe, but it freaked me out. I noticed, hey, listen, I'm losing a little bit of hair, and I decided to do some research. I decided to do my due diligence. I decided to find out, is there a way I can stop this? Because I was always under the impression that you lose your hair, there's nothing you can do about it. From my mom, at least, and to what I've heard. But she was wrong, so my mom's not always right. But I learned that there were things you can do about it, and I think what first caught my attention were those YouTube videos, regardless of whether they're real or not, those Propecia videos.
Right.
But whatever it is, it had some positive effect, because it got me thinking, wait, people are actually reversing this stuff, so let me see what I can do. Now, I first started out with emu oil, and that had a very positive effect.
Say that again.
So
emu oil, right? The bird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, make sure it's extracted at the correct temperature.
All right.
Because at a certain point, the temperature is too high, and a lot of commercial brands of emu oils do extract it at a very high temperature. So you have to get more. You have to get. I think it's between 150 and 200 degrees. What happens is that oil is great for your scalp. I know it's a little greasy, but for the frontal hairline, and Propecia and minoxidil aren't proven to work on the frontal hairline, although they do. But and that's a little more. That's a little bit each their own opinion. But emu oil really worked well on the front. That's all I've ever used it on. And right away, within a week or two, I had plenty of vellus hairs.
Well, you know, I think I told you this when you called a free for all that I have used emu oil, and I actually discussed it early on in my career, and I think I actually put it in kind of like as a alternative possibility in the first Bald Truth. It's a mess. It's difficult to use, I think, but I definitely think there is some.
I mean, some people would rather put that on than, let's say, I don't want to compare it to Propecia, but I mean, some people would feel more comfortable putting that on every night before they go to sleep.
I agree.
I'm not saying to put that on in the morning.
I agree 100%. I always believed, on a personal level and just from anecdotal evidence that's out there from the guys that have contacted us over the years, that the results are negligible. But there have been guys like yourself who have contacted me who really believe, and they believe it because they see with their own eyes that they're getting results. So I'm not here to poo-poo it. I think that there's a strong possibility that if you are the right candidate to benefit from this, then maybe it's going to work. I don't know. When I hear a story like yours, how can you not believe it?
Yeah, no. Well, I got a little more to say. So I started seeing vellus hairs, and at that time I started taking Propecia. I shouldn't have. A doctor gave me a prescription. It was this random doctor gave me a prescription, and I started taking Propecia. So after that, I told my parents I was taking it, and I was a little younger then, and any drug, if you can avoid taking it, you should avoid taking it. My mom was convinced that I wasn't losing anything. I thought I was, but I clearly was in my head.
Did you walk into like the bathtub? Now you're in the bathroom or something?
No. I'm in the lobby.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Is this better?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I took it for 3 months. Didn't have any side effects. A little bit of testicular pain. At a certain point, I thought I heard buzzing one time, but I was super paranoid. That's what the drug did to me. It might have been working fine, but from what I've read, every single second in my day, I was just thinking, oh, is this because of that? Is this because of that? It literally did not give me peace of mind. I had no serenity. I had nothing. I was going insane. So, and I told myself, listen, let me get smarter in the subject. Let me read up more. Maybe there's other alternatives I could do to buy time. And listen, if I fail and I got nothing else to do, I'll resort to Propecia. Let's just be aggressive. I'll go to Propecia. But for now, I had other plans to do. Now, again, emu oil, great, but I had a bit of a plan because I know I can't use emu oil forever. It worked because the hair loss that I was going through was very primitive. It was very raw. I was still young, so those molecules they were resting, and that's what emu oil does. It won't reverse your hair loss, but if you're going through that initial phase and you're starting off, emu oil is a great thing to do.
Well, let me ask you, Sam. You kind of said a mouthful about being paranoid, not having peace, feeling anxiety. The truth is, and I'm sure that you realize this, that you've read so much about the potential adverse side effects of finasteride that Yeah, it scared the shit out of you. So I mean, of course, that's the way you're going to react.
You know what? Sometimes I want to say, just like F it, just pop that like what 1 milligram of Proscar, and that's it. You don't have to do all this crap because that's stronger than anything. Right now, like that's the strongest thing we have, and that's a fact. But what I'm saying is, you mix other things up, you can really attack it from a different angle. Now, I started taking, listen, I can go through them. Saw palmetto, beta-sitosterol. I take biotin, a lot of it. I take, and the list is pretty big. I take a whole bunch of things. What is it? Nettle leaf, nettle root. Nettle leaf doesn't necessarily block your hair loss, but it definitely does a little bit. It doesn't necessarily inhibit that enzyme, alpha reductase, but what it definitely does is it's still good for the pigment of your hair, your eyes. It's good for you overall. And these herbal supplements, they're good for you. They're healthy. I mean, saw palmetto is good for you. I mean, not in the long term. You got to take it consistently.
Well, but the truth about saw palmetto, you have to realize that all these herbal, nutritional supplements can actually have adverse side effects. So, no matter what people think, using saw palmetto, if you're using the standardized form,
here's the difference. I haven't heard anyone say by taking natural supplements that they're screwed up for life. I haven't heard anyone ever say that.
You know what? That's true. But I have heard people who have added.
That's the difference.
I have.
Really think,
give me a second, Sam. Sam.
Sorry, go ahead.
Give me a second. I have heard people, and I've spoken with people who have taken saw palmetto, Pygium africanum, stinging nettle in combination, who have used standardized products, who have had sexual dysfunction. So there's no doubt that these herbal nutritional supplements it's strong medication. This comes from nature's pharmacy.
But I don't think that's what really scares people. Now, let me finish what I'm saying. Now, pretend that Propecia never had these minority of people saying that they have post-finasteride syndrome. Pretend that never existed.
Right.
I personally wouldn't care less about taking finasteride.
Right.
You know why? So what? If I get erectile dysfunction, if I get something, I stop it and it's over. Now, here's the thing, because right now, a lot of people are telling themselves, I care about my hair loss a lot right now. But maybe in 10 years from now, you'll mature and that will change.
That's right.
What happens if you speed yourself up for life? You're going to regret when you did some stupid thing. You saw some stupid post online. And now your life, there's nothing more valuable than your life. And that's why I keep saying, that's why I keep telling, let's say Joe, I love Joe. Joe's a great guy. I'm a huge fan of Joe because, again, there's a bit of all of us sufferers. There's a bit of Joe in all of us.
That's right.
That's a fact. What I'm telling Joe is, look at it this way. Imagine I were to tell you that hey, listen, Joe, I have this potion. You take it and it's gone forever. That Joe might think that's the best day in his life. I think that might be the worst day in Joe's life. You know why? Because the second he takes that potion and boom, he's got hairs coming back. He's gonna realize, this is what I ruined 40 years of my life for. That's what I'm saying. So
let's let Joe chime in on this, man. Joe definitely has to chime in on this.
Am I on the air?
Yeah, you're on the air, Joe.
Yeah. I agree with young sufferer like Sam. The guy's young. He's I wasted my youth worrying about this devastating, the world's worst disease. It fucking destroyed my life. You're young guys. A couple of years will be over, man. So you're very doing forward, Sam.
Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I shouldn't even be judging you because I don't understand really what you went through. I felt a touch of it. And trust me, it sucks. Maybe I'm confident right now because I'm in complete control of it. I literally reversed pretty much everything. And I've got a little bit more and I'm working on it. And what I realized is, even though it's having its effect, because its effect is wearing off, but it's more or less consistent, but there's only so much it will do. Now, the vellus hairs, the new ones keep coming slower and slower. What happens is right away I would see blonde hairs and they would turn into dark hairs within 2-3 months. Now I'm seeing it's taking much longer for the new hair. It constantly I keep seeing new little vellus hairs every couple of months. And now this process is going much, much slower. But the thing is, I'm going forward, not backwards. That's why I'm confident. So I know I got control over it. For me, if I can push this, if I can keep the system going for another 5-10 years, I understand 1 year, 6 months, everyone's saying something's coming out, but let's be realistic. Who knows what's going to happen? And it might not come out for a little bit of a while.
Well, here's Sam, this is what I see that's positive about what you're saying and this phone call, is that you have come to terms with your reality. And your reality is, using emu oil and your nutritional supplements has
And I'm taking minoxidil as well.
Okay, and minoxidil has definitely
I went from 2 to 5. Yeah.
has definitely helped with your hair loss. You are in a better position as far as you believe that you've halted your hair loss, which is it's huge. That is absolutely huge. You're not hyper concerned about the use of finasteride. That's not a cloud that is over your head, so you're not concerned about that. So your life is better. So for you, dude, I'm telling you, you're doing the best thing that you can do for yourself. So.
I think the best thing for me to be able to say, Mickey, you look just as great with even with the hair loss than without it.
Well, that would be would be amazing.
If I didn't care at all, that would be the best.
Dude, that would be that would be the best for me. That would be the best for me. It's funny. Dr. Frank. I don't know if you were listening to the show, but Dr. Frank said he met me 10 years ago, and he said, he asked me how I've changed. He said I was so much more concerned about it before. I'm just as concerned now. Maybe when I met him, I don't know. I know it was at a conference. I think it was a conference maybe in Vegas or in Chicago, and I was speaking and I was talking about my, how it overwhelmed my life and all that stuff. And maybe that was what he was sensing, that I was insecure about myself at the time, and I was, whatever. I think it was more than 10 years ago. It was probably I was like in my early 30s when we first met. So maybe he saw me as a different person. I was younger, and because I was so open about it, maybe he felt I was insecure. I personally feel like I've never gotten completely over it, but I really kind of won the battle in a sense in my late 20s.
I like to look at your head, Spencer, and you know what? If I were to put you in line with people like your age, man, you're looking great. Forget your hair. I mean, your body, how you look. I mean, you're down to earth. You're good to go, Spencer. Honestly,
I appreciate that.
You should be confident because you got it. You know what I'm saying?
That's nice to hear. Thank you.
It's you know what? Honestly, guys, I'm weak because I'm vulnerable to this as well, and it's hypocritical of me to say this. But even if what I'm doing would stop working, I'm weak enough that I will resort to finasteride. I will. I know I will. Although I wouldn't want to. I know it's bad for me. But yeah, I'm one of you guys. I understand. I'll try to do anything. But I think at the end of the day, I'll get over it. I will get over it because listen, guys, there's more to life than a couple of hairs on your head. Like, come on. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just hair. I mean, there's so many... Honestly, if I were to give you a real problem, and Joe wouldn't agree with me on this, but if I were to, God forbid, give someone cancer...
I know.
I realize that that's the last thing you care about.
Well, I agree with that. I have been, I've had some, luckily never, thank my blessings, never anything, life-threatening or really that severe. But, I've been sick at times where, like, I once had this really bad, infection where my throat I was all swelled up. I couldn't even swallow my own saliva. I would have given $10,000 just to drink a glass of water. That's how.
There you go, Spencer. I mean, you can't think of it worse than that. People don't have arms. People don't have legs.
I know.
People can't do. People live their life with nothing. And
well, Sam, you don't want my opinion on that.
We have every gift. We have every gift, right? We have food on our table. We have life. You know what I'm saying? Most of us have good families. We come from good places, and yet we're going to throw it all away because God had a little genetic flaw in males that we started balding at 20 years old.
I mean, listen,
we're going to throw our life away.
I'm going to tell you, kid. You have a good attitude when it comes to that, but you understand the reality of it. Also, it's as much as you can intellectualize it and realize that it's only hair. It still sucks when you look in the mirror and you see your appearance eroding, along with your hairline, and your self-confidence erodes as well. Yeah.
And trust me, I'm the first guy to understand that.
Yeah.
I'm the first guy to understand that, okay? When you have this idea of being cool and getting all the attention, being that person, and then, in your head you feel like that's it. It's going away. You're getting old. You're getting old, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Of course it sucks. But you know what? Humans generally hate change. But sometimes you learn to adapt it. So then you have to shave your head. You just have to get buff.
Right.
That's it. You're a different person now. And you learn to love it. And you know what? Yes, everyone has their own situation. People can pull it off. People can't pull it off. People will...
Please.
Sorry?
Sam, if you don't care about hair loss that much, what do you call it? Why are involved on the show?
Joe, you gotta listen to me for a second. Trust me, I care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be calling this number. I wouldn't be spending time.
That's obvious.
And I relate to it. I felt that pain. I know what it feels like. It sucks like nothing else.
Well, listen.
Look around. Let's be realistic. How many people are we? How many fans do you have, Spencer? Let's just say you have 10 million fans, okay? How many people go through this? So many more people. You don't see people killing themselves. You don't see people going insane. People deal with it. People figure it out.
Well, they figure it out, but I will tell you that there's a lot of sadness brought on by it. There are guys who may not have fulfilled their potential in life because they weren't equipped to deal with their hair loss. It's just
I agree.
It's just the way. It's just the way that it is. I chose to turn my Achilles heel into my profession and into my life's career. So I'm unique in that fact, and having the ability to do that. And there are guys who can just kind of turn their backs on it and live their lives and still be successful. But there are so many more guys, sadly, that will never reach their potential or live the life that they wanted to live because they're so consumed and insecure and affected adversely by their hair loss. So that's what this platform is all about, to get guys like you, a young guy who you're fucked up over it. I could hear it, but you still have hope that even if all fails, you're going to have life after hair loss and somehow figure it out. So I appreciate that.
You know why? Because I've experienced both. I sometimes there's certain moments in your life where things just get so screwed up, even for a split second. You get that feeling, and you're like, whoa, people can be going through so much worse than this. And I think that's what kind of triggers me to realize that I think humans naturally, innately, always obsess over something. We can never be purely happy. We always got to be worried about something. So the second we get a more significant problem, we forget about the less significant ones. The second that more significant problem goes away, we go back to worrying about that less significant problem.
That's right. And Joe, you keep saying, "Oh God," but actually, the kid's right. This last statement, it was a very on-point statement. That's just the way that it is. I've been through a lot in my life. Yes.
This kid is young. You're 23, Sam, right?
20.
Yeah, I just turned 23. Yeah.
23.
You got to understand, in a few short years, you may not have a cure, but you have an effective treatment, and you'll still be young. I have more hair, but I'm old. My life is almost over. My youth has been destroyed. But people like you, people complaining, your youth is funny. You're going to have it, Sam. This is what gets me upset. I'm sorry, Sam.
All right, listen, guys.
I'm naive, Joe. I understand that I'm not. I don't really understand the pain.
All right, guys, I'll tell you what. We're running out of time. I'm going to take one more call tonight, and then we're going to call it a day. Sam, listen, man. Thank you so much for calling.
It was amazing, Spencer.
All right, man.
It was a pleasure, Spencer.
I say that again.
Guys, live it up, okay?
All right, man. Enjoy. Take care. Thanks for the call, bro.
Pleasure.
All right. Oh, I just hung up on Joe. Oh, well, there you go. Hey, who's this? You're on the air.
Hey, it's George.
George, you're still there, man. What's up?
No, I'm just combing fleas out of a cat and listening to the rain come down outside like we're going to drown, like it's the next universal deluge in Mobile.
I mean, think about what George just said. He's combing fleas out of a cat. That's awesome.
Well, it has to be done, rather than put poison all over them.
Oh, absolutely.
There was something I was going to ask you related to hair loss, and it kind of like went in and went out a while back while you were having a conversation. I was trying to hold on to it.
Well, listen, I'm going to actually call it a night. So if you want to call back next week, I'm glad that you're calling the show again, George. We missed you.
Well, I'm just taking care of a pet who's in end-stage cancer, and that's like I'm not feeling in a real chatty mood right now.
I hear you, bro.
So, anyway, but thanks a lot for letting me say my piece.
I wish you luck with your cat, and I hope that he or she doesn't suffer too much, and very lucky that he has an owner or a parent like you. So I'm a big animal lover, so I get it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people tell me the same thing, and so I appreciate that very much. I'm just like, I imagine you and common law probably, like me, look at your pets like your children since
Absolutely.
You don't have any.
Yeah.
And, to me, I take that responsibility very seriously, just like as if I was taking care of a child. I know most people think that's wacky doodle, but, No,
listen, I get that. Like we are actually, well, I don't want to get into anything personal, but absolutely. I just removed a benign, a huge tumor from our dog's chest. And we didn't see it because, we have a German Shepherd, and the guy has so much hair in his chest. We went to the groomer, had him groomed. We haven't had him professionally groomed in a while. And the tumor just broke and bled all over the place. So they contacted us, and luckily the vet is very close to the groomer. And it was huge. We had to have it removed, excised. We had to take the stitches out. It was scary.
Thank God it was benign. I have this cat, and he was youngest of the three I have, and he was fat, all his life, and I was trying to get weight off of him. And this past summer, I started cutting back on his food because I said I got to get the weight off before he gets diabetes or something. So the weight started coming off, and I thought I was accomplishing that by cutting back on his food, and then, unbeknownst to me, at the same time I cut back on his food, he had developed lymphoma cancer in his intestines.
Yeah, it's happening.
And he started losing weight, and I thought it was me, and it was cancer. So by the time, but the vet said it was already too far gone, before any symptoms started anyway. So I don't know, man. It's just really tough. It's like us. We get old, pets start falling apart. We start falling apart. The friggin' hair starts falling out.
Look, you don't think that one day that Joe or someone's going to come on the air and say, Kobren's dead? It could happen. It's just the way that it is. That's why I try to live one day at a time and just enjoy. Try to find some enjoyment in life, as difficult as life is. And believe me, I'm not shitting you guys. There are times in my life that are so difficult. With business, with life, personal issues, my family, stuff that is just, it could be overwhelming. I still have to get on the air. I still have to do my shit, talk to you guys. I still have to work and function. Sometimes it's not easy, man. Do you
ever get the feeling like I do when all those things you mentioned start weighing on you, taking care of sick pets, taking care of family members, taking care of your personal shit, medical problems, legal problems, financial stuff, the whole 9 yards. Sometimes I just wish I could just go to I'm not Catholic and I'm not Orthodox, but sometimes I wish I could just go to the other side of the planet and go into one of these monasteries and put a robe on with a hood and just walk around every day and push a broom around or something.
It's funny.
While I listen to monks chant in the background, and that's the most stressful shit of my day is pushing a broom around.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think that's a fantasy of mine as far as to go to that level. But yeah, my whole thing is just, sometimes I'm like, well, I just wish I had a regular job where I can just work 9 to 5, come home, maybe some sort of a union job where I wasn't going to get fired. And just be happy, living somewhere in Queens and, whatever, and just be satisfied with that. You're going to have health insurance and all that shit, and just, there's really no pressure. There's really, you have a job like that, you just do your job. As long as you're healthy, there's really no pressure in life, except dealing with, whatever you can't control. I think about that sometimes.
The whole thing is a mirage. I had a union job for 20 years. And supposedly in a position where you could never be fired or anything, and they fucked me over 7 ways from Sunday with a perfect record of performance for 20 years, and I worked for the federal government, and they screwed me every way they could, and it took me 7 years and over $250,000 to win my legal case, and they still won't pay me what they owe me, okay? So thinking that there's a cushy job out there, so anytime you work for someone else and they call the shot, you're subject to getting screwed.
That's true. Absolutely.
Okay? There is no such thing. The idea of security when you work for someone else, when your paycheck and your livelihood is dependent on anybody else, or you got anybody else standing over you or determining your worth or whatever, there is no security. Of course, there's no security in this life anyway, period. But I mean,
the bottom line is everything in life is on loan. As soon as the sooner you realize that, especially you young guys out there, the better off you're going to be. Nothing is promised. Everything is on loan. Your health, your wife, your friends, your money, your home. Home ownership. It's the biggest crock of shit. I mean, no one in this country really owns their home anymore. You don't know if you can't pay your property taxes, you don't own your home. You have to pay
That's all part of the creeping socialism. We already have all 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto in place, and number one is you're not going to have private ownership of property. Like you said, as long as you, mean, it's absurd to think that you can completely pay for a piece of property, but if at any point in the future you become unable to pay taxes, they take it away from you. So you never own the fucking thing to begin with.
That's right. So I talk to people, and especially young guys who want to get into home ownership, and I'm like, you know what? Honestly, it really depends on your situation, but it's really the American Association of Realtors or the National Association of Realtors that are forcing you guys to think that home ownership is a smart move for everybody. For some people, home ownership isn't the smartest move in the world, and I just find it, fascinating, just the shit that we're shoveled our entire lives. Work your balls off in school, get a good job, buy a home early, do all this stuff. It doesn't mean shit. There's so many other ways to live your life. And listen, I fell for it. I fell for it a million times over in life. So, and you're right. You know what? I mentioned the union job because I know guys who are they live their lives and they feel like they're safe. You're right. You really aren't 100% safe, even with a union job.
And even with the government union jobs now, these worthless pieces of breathing excrement outlaw Congress vote themselves raises, okay, and passes laws on health care, exempts themselves, trying to pass laws on gun control now, but they're going to exempt themselves from that. They're living like fucking kings and queens and potentates inside the Beltway. They passed all this shit that doesn't apply to them. However, at the same time, they're trying to cut other government workers' pension benefits. They're trying to raise the contributions towards our health care and retirement. They're doing everything they can to screw all the other government employees while they're enriching their own little red wagon. So there you go. There is no security as long as you work for other people, including the federal government, especially the federal government. It used to be federal jobs were secure. Now it's just exactly the opposite, unless you're in Congress.
There you go. That's well said, bro. That's well said. Listen, I know Joe wants to say goodnight. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Let me, you're still potted up. Let me say goodnight to Joe. Joe, that you?
Yes, I want to say goodnight. Great show. I don't mean to castigate Sam, but, the point I'm going to make, these guys are so young, they got so much to look forward to in their lives. They'll be able to live a normal life, so don't throw your youth away.
You know what? Sam is just starting to figure it out, man. He's excited. He calls the show. He's a smart kid. He's doing his thing, and he's trying to figure it out, and he will. It really, I believe it takes you to about 40 to really figure it out. And then even after that, you're still fucked up to some degree. You're basically a kid.
I'm 54.
What'd you say?
Sorry. I'm 54. I still haven't figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically a kid in an older body who is, just has more experience, and you figured out some of it. But every day there's a new obstacle or a new struggle. You just have to kind of just realize that, it's going to happen. Just enjoy your life, enjoy the good moments in life, and just deal with the rest of the shit. And that's...
Well, Spencer.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go. What?
This guy, Sam, I'm not a physician, but he seems very nervous. I would definitely recommend some type of sedative for him, like such as Valium or Xanax, because he seems like a very nervous cat.
I'm sure he appreciates that guy. Listen, we are 15 minutes over time. Thank you guys, George, Joe, everyone else who called in. Dr. Frank, thank you so much if you're still listening or watching the broadcast. Everybody else, Sam and Vic and all the guys who I forgot their names who called in, thank you for joining us tonight. Let me give out the websites, thebaldtruth.com, if you want to check out archives of The Bald Truth. And, of course, don't forget about The Bald Truth UK. We've only done one live show, but we've done several recorded shows. The segments will be up. Some more segments starting tomorrow. Hopefully, we had some technical issues when we were scheduled to go live again the week before last. Hopefully this Sunday we will be able to make it live, but we've been having problems with my second Skype machine, and then we had problems with Spex's internet connection. So hopefully we can make that happen. So that's Sunday nights, 8 p.m. GMT time, and if you want to watch here in the U.S., that is 12 noon on the West Coast, 3 p.m. on the East Coast Sunday for The Bald Truth UK. And of course, if you want to join our message forum, interact with other hair loss sufferers, check out baldtruthtalk.com. And until next time, be strong. God bless. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program. and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night. Good night.